Hey guys, it's Troy. Welcome to another episode. Your silence says more than your explanations ever will. Your silence says more than your explanations ever will. So this applies in many, many different areas of the dating process, the relationship process, the breaking up process, but taking it down to its most simple elements. Basically, you don't want to over-explain. Right? You don't want to, she doesn't need your explanations, all right? The world doesn't need your explanations, okay? Your silence, all right, your restraint tells the story for you, and silence and restraint is actually more powerful. Now, let's think about some examples where this really comes into play. The first thing is, I guess, closure. You know, this idea that people need closure after a relationship has come to its end, and you know, say you've been seeing somebody for a period of time and then she chooses to not want to see you anymore, and maybe she sends you a message to explain that, or maybe she doesn't and she basically ghosts you, and you then reach out to her and, you know, basically bombard her with a bunch of messages or DMs asking, you know, to meet up for a coffee, to discuss things, so that you can get this mythical thing called closure. Now, the problem really with this is that closure just doesn't really exist, okay? It's an idea, okay? It's an idea in people's head. It's a word that somebody made up in relation to this at some point. I don't know exactly when. Somebody made up this word, and we think about, you know, tying things up neatly in a nice little bow, and everyone's got closure and everyone can go home happy. The problem with it is it doesn't really exist, because if she has chosen to finish things and you're not happy with that, then whatever explanation she gives, are you going to be satisfied with that? Are you going to go to bed, you know, after that meeting and go, oh well, you know, she's explained it all, so I guess I can just relax now and, you know, job done? Probably not. Probably not. What's actually going to happen is that you are going to generate more questions, you're going to generate more thoughts, more doubts, you know, and then next thing you know, you're going to be messaging her again. Oh, can we have another meeting? I just wanted to talk about this aspect of it, or I wanted to talk about that aspect of it. I mean, we worked with a guy who had split with his girlfriend, and he wanted to speak with her on a weekly basis afterwards to sort of find out exactly what had gone wrong or what he'd done wrong or whatever. We said it was a bad idea. And the reason we said it was a bad idea was because, for a start, just for your own point of view, you know, in that situation, you're upset, you're hurt, and you are, every time you speak to that person, you're like reopening the wound, okay? You know, you're just reopening the wound. You're not allowing yourself to heal. And in the end as well, it becomes a fruitless exercise, okay? It becomes a fruitless task, a thankless task, where her action in itself has told you what you need to know, okay? She has chosen to end the relationship. That really in itself is the closure that you are looking for, okay? There isn't really a lot more to be said. Now, okay, you know, if you really want to go into the gory details, you know, you could ask her, oh, exactly why was this? But you might not want to hear the answers. You know, realistically, you might not want to hear the answers. What if she says, well, I met some guy who's better looking than you and taller and richer, and so I decided to go off with him instead? Is that really what you wanted to hear? You know, what have you gained through that process? Okay? And what has she gained through that process? What have both of you gained through that process? Nothing. You know, you've just opened the can of worms further and probably got more upset and, you know, sabotaged any growth that you might have achieved or any healing that you might have achieved, okay? It's just, it's a waste of time. And furthermore, you know, if you are frustrated or angry with her and you want to make some point or something like that, it's actually often more powerful just to not say anything, okay? It's actually often more powerful just to put a pause on any sort of communications and just not to say anything, okay? Because anything that you do say, there's always a danger that you sound butthurt or you sound emotional or you sound like you're, I don't know, reactive or just try hard. Often better to say nothing. The same thing applies, and this is a lesser sort of situation, I guess, but the same thing applies in the dating process when, you know, say you've been trying to arrange to meet up with somebody and she's messed you around a couple of times and, you know, she said that she'll meet for a date and then she's cancelled and then she said she'll meet you again and then she's cancelled again or whatever. It's far more powerful. Never complain, never explain. Never explain, never complain. No, it's the other way around. Never complain, never explain. Okay? You know, just don't. Just leave it. Just leave it, okay? There's too much, you know, remember that texting, an over-emotive, reactive, and sort of emotional reaching out in DMs and all this kind of thing is quite a feminine thing, really. You know, and as a guy, I would suggest that you shouldn't be doing it, right? You should be somewhat stoic in the face of whatever happens, really. And you've got to be very careful when you put pen to paper or when you start typing in that text or that WhatsApp message or whatever it is, that DM, and think about, well, how is this going to look? And would the best version of myself send this message? And okay, it might feel good for me now to send this message at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm really miserable and I can't sleep and everything else, but one, is she actually going to answer it? How am I going to feel if she doesn't answer? And secondly, when I look back on this tomorrow or in a day's time, am I going to regret having sent it? And the answer 9 times out of 10 is probably yes. You know, probably your James Bond stoic, super cool, avatar or archetype would probably not send that message. So why are you choosing to do it? You know, you're doing it from a place of emotion, okay? We do these things because we seek dopamine, right? This is why we send messages and why we love to receive. We love that ping when we receive a message, okay? Restraint of pen and tongue, okay, is the way forward. Your silence is more powerful. Your restraint is more powerful than anything you could write. So just try to have that discipline, okay? And try not to be reactive and try not to certainly bombard with people with messages, okay? Because you can get in trouble. And it's not cool. It doesn't look cool, okay? It doesn't present you in the way that you want to present, all right? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. Please do give me a like, give me a dislike, write a comment below, let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channels. If you're interested in coaching, email me troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.